Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chabi, just before we broke for lunch, we had completed and you had given your finding as regards one of the issues you were mandated to investigate. We now turn to the second issue, which is addressing the actual ETC of 38.6 billion. You deal with that from your page 27 at from paragraph 9.11. Now, as is our practice, before we deal with the detail of this ETC of 38.8 billion, 38.6 billion, my apologies, perhaps it might be appropriate to put up onto the screen slide 11.
And you could switch on your mic as well.
And in this slide, you summarize the mandate and your findings. So if you could just quickly take us through that.
Okay. So the second part of the mandate entailed assessing whether the 38.6 billion was a reasonable cost for the locomotive. I think we spoke briefly about that.
Yes.
And whether that included forex hedging and escalation.
Yes.
The finding in that regard was the 38.6 billion was a reliable estimate for the locomotive, for the 1064 locomotives, and the ETC did indeed include forex hedging and escalation.
As you correctly point out, we have touched somewhat on the reasonableness of the 38.6 billion for the 1064. And in this session, we will deal with only those aspects that we didn't perhaps cover before we broke for lunch.
Okay.
But the bulk of our time on this issue will be spent on the question of whether or not the 38.6 billion included forex hedging and escalation. Okay. Now, starting at your page 27, as I said, paragraph 9.11, you then may take us through how you arrive at the finding that is reflected at slide 11.
Okay. So if I may, Chair. So I've got overhead slide 12.
Yes.
Which details the delivery schedule. We have spoken to this already. Again, just quickly going through it, was 100 right through to 2017 for diesel locomotives in each year, and 65 locomotives in the year 2018, and that's ending in March 2018. And we can see the electrics being shifted out 1 year, starting in April 2014, and ending March 2015, we were expecting 65 electric locomotives, 130 right through to 2018, and 144 locomotives in the last year, the year ending March 2019. And that's a total of 1064 locomotives. What I point to underneath that table is the 4-month testing period. So one thing I'm omitted to mention earlier on was that 90% of the price was paid on delivery for the locomotive. That's how the business case was developed, with the remaining 10% paid 4 months later after testing. Followed that philosophy. You can only generate revenue once the locomotives are operational, so your revenue only kicked in 4 months after delivery of the first locomotive. The business case also allows for that delay in time.
So the revenue we have been considering of 109 billion over the period was based on this 4-month delay for the
Correct.
testing of the locomotives.
It accounted for the delay.
It accounted for that, yes.
In the operation of the locomotives. The 4-month delay period was one of the aspects we also engaged on with transit officials. Whether 4 months was a reasonable period for testing. Their view was, based on practice, it was around 9 months. It would take about 9 months from delivery to getting the locomotive to start operating. Basically 9 months to test. What the 4-month delay period did in the business case was to bring the costs forward a bit, and again that has the impact of reducing your profit, because you're incurring costs a lot sooner than you would have initially anticipated or expected if you had used the 9-month delay period. So we were happy with the 4-month delay. Again, it was conservative.
Okay. We then now deal with the breakdown of the 38.6 billion specifically. And for that purpose, I think we should have regard to your slide 13.
So slide 13
Yes.
is presented, projected overhead. So we break down the 38.6 billion into the various components that we spoke to earlier on, except for the localization premium. The localization premium we've allowed for in the locomotive price. We then will look at SAPPI and what proportion, what amount that formed in the 38.6 billion. We'll look at US PPI and what amount that formed in the 38.6 billion. The foreign currency cost as well, we'll look at that and what amount it formed in the 38.6 billion and the contingency amount. Essentially, all of that made up your 38.6 billion we discussed. That we then divided those costs by locomotive type as well, looking at diesels and looking at electric locomotives.
Help us here. What we see on slide 13 is a product of your work. The slide as currently presented doesn't exist in any of the documentation provided you, in the form that you presented at 13.
Correct, in the form presented it does not.
So this is as a result of an analysis you conducted of the financial model.
Correct.
Now, are you able to point us to the source of information that led you to the conclusions you draw on the slide?
So it would have been from the financial model
Yes.
and from certain sheets in the financial, certain worksheets in the financial model.
Okay.
I can speak to
You
the sheets.
refer us to annexure AC4 at your paragraph 9.16.
Correct, look at annexure
Okay.
AC4.
In that paragraph, I picked up a little error. I think the paragraph is incomplete. It concludes that this annexure is titled in the financial model, but doesn't give the title.
Oh,
Is that not
Apologies for
supposed
that.
to read in INVETS TCO locus capex?
correct.
Okay. So we must add that
Apologies, Chair.
sentence at the end of paragraph 9.16.
What do we add?
At the end, Chair, of that paragraph, 9.16,
Yeah,
it should read what you have currently is this annexure is titled in the financial model, but then doesn't give you the title. So we propose to add the title, and we do so by opening INVETS. We write capital TCO.
okay. Shall I arrange that you
Yes.
replace it with
I shall.
an amended page? You give me an amended page
Will do so, Chair.
that would replace, yeah.
But
Okay.
for purposes of the record, at least, just state the title of that annexure.
It is titled TCO locus capex.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, you direct us to annexure AC4, and that starts at your page 162. Now, if we could just go page by page, it's supposed to start at 162. We may, for our purposes, ignore 163, correct? Please check your page 163.
I have 163 here.
We may ignore that graph there.
Or we can ignore that, yes. We can ignore that.
And you want in particular for us to have regard to 163, page 163.
Page 163, and in particular the table.
The table.
Left of the graph, yes.
Chair, page 163 has got a table. To the left and on the right is a graph. We may ignore the graph for purposes of our discussion. What is important is the table. But the reproduction at page 163 is very tiny and difficult to read. What we have done is we have reproduced a larger table, which I beg leave to hand a copy in of, and we propose that that be numbered 163.1. It comes already numbered.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Now, Mr. Chabi, you intend to go to the specific worksheet, right? In order to help us understand how you arrive at the figures that you set out in your slide 13.
Yes.
If you could take us there.
Is what you have on the screen now 163.1?
No, it's coming up. No, it's coming up.
Oh.
There it is, Chair. Now it's coming up.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, you will recall, because now slide 13, if the Chair could just keep it open, slide 13. At slide 13, you give us the total, respectively, of the locomotive price, the SAA PPI escalation cost, US CPI escalation cost, forex hedging, and contingencies. So you
Correct.
give us the totals for both electric and diesel, and you conclude at the bottom with a total ETC of 38.6 billion.
Correct.
So that we will keep handy, and then you can help us work through this worksheet.
Okay.
Would it be correct to say the worksheet you are referring us to supports the conclusions drawn at slide 13?
Correct.
Okay.
In
Then-
part.
In part?
Yes.
Okay, then identify those parts and help us understand slide 13.
Okay, so the number of worksheets we would need to work through, demonstrate what we have on slide 13. The second worksheet we would need to work through is the third worksheet titled Main Control Input.
Okay?
Is the Chair able to see? Okay. Chair, if I can point you to the red cells
Yes.
and the third one in particular. If you can see where my cursor is, it shows you 38.6 billion. If
That is our ETC.
that's
Yeah.
our ETC. As per the business case. Just beneath that cell, you can see the net present value of 2.7 billion. Again, trying to substantiate the view that the business case was actually derived from this financial model. What we will attempt to do in this instance is to look at the inflation assumptions made locally and abroad, look at the assumptions made around the foreign exchange rate going forward, and adjust those and determine basically observe the impact it has on the 38.6 billion. Hopefully that will suffice as proof that the 38.6 billion allowed for those costs. But I guess before we get there as well, it would be ideal to look at what the locomotives would have cost Transnet had they decided to acquire them as of April 2013. Going back to your initial suggestion and discussion around ETC, about acquiring them right there and not spreading them over the delivery period. I think once we've verified that, it will become clear that this is what the locomotives would have cost you, barring all the additional costs.
Okay? Please proceed.
So, Chair, I will go back to the annexure before you, which is TCO Locals CAPEX.
And by that you mean Annexure AC4
AC4.
in our statement, yes.
And I'll attempt to explain what you have before you.
Yes. In particular, we're going to 163.1 or
Indeed, Chair.
indeed, okay.
The table, yes.
Okay. So, Chair, the first table, which is the top part, as you can see there, and maybe I should highlight all of that.
Yes.
That table is what we're looking at. Relates to the projection of the diesel locomotive prices right through to 2022. We know, however, that the delivery schedule ended in 2019. following the cursor, maybe I should use the mouse instead. That is the financial year in red, as can be seen. Second row says diesel. ZAR locomotive essentially is the price of the locomotive in rands, in rand terms. And we can see, starting April 2013, the price of the locomotive in rands was 25.2 million rands. We can see that price, that's the next cell is the yellow cell, is held constant right through the year, so up to March 2014. It is important to understand how this price, how we arrive at this 25.2. You will recall, Chair, the price of the diesel locomotive that we had started off with was $2.6 million. I attempted to explain how we moved from $2.6 million to 25.2 million rands. The assumption made was 50% of the locomotive content would be sourced locally and 50% would be sourced abroad. And that's $1.3 million locally, $1.3 million abroad. However, to allow for the additional cost of manufacturing this locomotive locally, a 2% premium was added onto the local component of the $1.3 million. So going back with the cursor, $25.2 million, the price in dollars, 25.2 million rands, the price in dollars is 2.6. Just beneath that, you have 12.7 million rands. It is roughly half of 25.2 million rands, but I'll get into that shortly. The foreign bit sits at 12.5 million rands, and we can see just beneath that the percentage foreign, which is 50% of the $2.6 million, and it's reflected there's 1.3 million. I'm not sure if the chair's following. So we're still in that column. 1.3, 12.5, 12.7, 2.6, 25.2. Your 25.2 is the sum or the addition of those two cells. I'll highlight them in red. 12.7 and 12.5.
And
it is no sorry?
Sorry, that 12.7 is 12.7 million rands, being the local portion of the 25.2 million, which
Correct.
is the cost of the locomotive, and the 12.5 million is the foreign component of that price,
Yes,
translated into rands.
correct.
Okay. And
So
to say that
12
the sum of those two give us 25.2. That's how
Million
we
rands.
determine that the price of the locomotive is 25.2.
Correct.
Adding, of course, now, the 12.7 for the local portion of the price has taken into consideration the 2% localization already.
And that is why it is higher than the foreign component.
Okay.
Had we not had 2%, because we're assuming 50-50, we'd expected those two figures to be the same.
Yes.
But because we have a 2% premium on the local content, it is higher in rand terms. And I suppose, in your words, Chair, that principle should follow right through. And we can test that principle across the various years. So in 2013, year 2013, ending March 2014, 12.7, higher than 12.5. So the 12.7 is the local, it is
Yeah.
higher than the foreign. If we look at the next year, we still see the same principle applying.
Yes.
I'm not sure why it's different in that cell.
And, yeah, but as you go further, appears that the foreign component becomes higher.
Correct.
Is there an explanation for that?
Just a minute. Okay. So the reason you actually see the foreign component increasing at a higher rate than the local component is because of the hedging cost. So allowing for that and the escalation, you come up with a price locally that's higher than the price abroad, and you'll actually see that from the table. If you look at the component prices making up the 38.6 billion, you will see that SAPPI only came in at, if we look at the totals, this is slide 13.
That's slide 13, yeah.
The total for SAPPI came in at 1.8 billion. However, taking into account US CPI and Forex, we're looking at about 4 billion. So the foreign component, in terms of price, actually increases beyond the local component. So that's allowing for the exchange rate.
Yes.
But we can see in the first year, allowing for that 50-50 and the 2% above on the 2% premium, the local component is higher than the foreign component.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I think at this point, going back to slide 13, I think we'll try and derive the 30.476 billion we have there, or maybe just focus on the diesel part and try and derive the 11.147.
There's a principle that cuts across. You perhaps can make an example with the diesel in 1314. And then if that is applicable, you then say we can apply the same principle across. If not, you'll explain what principle to apply, and then you can extend that same principle to the electrics.
Correct. So we can just be
So let's deal with
focus on
the
diesels.
example of the
And if
diesel.
we're happy with
yeah.
diesels, we should be happy with electrics. So, Chair, we know that the starting price for diesel locomotives was $2.6 million,
Yes.
and that was in 2013, April 2013. Had they acquired all the diesel locomotives in April 2013, allowing for the 2% localization, they would have paid about 11 billion rands for those diesel locomotives. How do you arrive at that? Should I do the calculation on my end while I speak to you?
Yeah, yes, you explain it to us, yes.
Okay, so we take
Just make sure you are clear for tomorrow's reader of the transcript, that they can follow what you say.
Okay. So we take the $2.6 million. The exchange rate that applied at the time was 9.5854. Sorry, Chair, maybe I should actually take you through those
518?
additional cells. Sorry?
9.158?
Correct, that's the forward rate.
Yeah.
That's very correct. So we should be applying the spot rate,
Yeah.
not the forward rate. Thanks.
And just to, perhaps, we don't have to go to the, you stated, just check your page 18, paragraph 7.6.10. You tell us that the spot rate as at 18 April 2013 was 9.1285.
Just check that. So this, okay, so on page 18, yes, the
Yeah.
spot rate was 9.12185.
Yes. No, 1285,
1285, correct.
all right? Okay, so now we've located our spot rate.
Correct.
And we know the price then in 2013 was $2.6 million.
So to get the rand
Yes.
part, we take the 2.6 million, multiplied by the spot rate at the time, and that gives us 23.7 million, so 23.7341 million rands.
Yes.
However, this still does not include that 2% localization.
Please raise your voice again.
Okay, so so this price of 23.7341 does not include the 2% localization premium. So to this price, we need to add the 2% localization premium. But the 2% only applies to the local component. So in effect, we're adding 1% because it's half of 2%. So we take this 23.7341 and we multiply it by 1.01, and that gives us the price with the localization premium allowed for. That gives us a price of 23.971441 per diesel locomotive, and that is in rand terms. I must state it's different to the 25 that we see
Yeah.
here, because the 25 that we see here uses the forward rate of 9.5854. We then take this price per locomotive at the spot price, allowing for the 2% localization premium, and multiply by the number of diesel locomotives we would have acquired at the time. In this instance, it's 465. And that gives us 11,146.72.
Yes.
11,146.72.
Now that 11, say it's 11.146.
11,146.72.
And that is the figure at your slide 13 under diesel for locomotive price. You have rounded off to 11,147.
Correct.
Okay?
So had you acquired all the diesel locomotives as of April 2013, this is what you would have paid in terms of ETC, just for your diesels. Moving that across to electrics, it would have been 19.329 billion. So we are happy that we now have the price of the locomotives. So anything, that tells us there's a difference then between the 30.476 we're seeing, the 38.6 billion. We now need to understand what that difference is.
So we can say at this juncture now, we know that the ETC was 38.6. What we have done is to extract the cost of the locomotive free from all other associated costs.
Correct.
So we know of the 38.6, the actual cost of the locomotives were 30.
Correct.
Okay? So then we look at the makeup of the difference between the two.
Correct.
Yes.
So Chair, still focusing on the diesel tab, we have shown that the local price increases by a certain amount each year. And if I take you to, so I'll just highlight the row that I'm looking at in red. If the chair is able to, is it highlighted there, Chair? No.
Just scroll
Sorry.
down or up. I don't know what would happen.
I'm working off the wrong machine. My apologies.
You're working off. Okay.
My apologies, Chair. I'm working off the wrong machine. There is the row of interest, which relates to the price of the local component of the locomotive in rand terms.
Mm-hmm.
12.7 is the starting price, but this 12.7 is based on if I go further down, Chair, we'll highlight again a row of interest here is based on that exchange rate of 9.59. Allowed to flip between pages. I think on page 18 again, I have put there the table applicable to this forward curve. And we can see in year 2014, the rate was 9.5854. Rounded off here to 9.59, but we can increase that for Chair to, there we go. If I increase the number of decimal places, you can see the 5854 coming up.
And then that, before you leave that row, that number then changes in every successive year. It goes
Correct.
up to 1004, then goes to 1052, to 11, and so forth, until eventually in 2022-23, it is at 1430.
1413. So we can see from this that the rand was expected to depreciate over those years, because the amount needed in rand terms per dollar kept increasing over the years.
Okay.
Going back to the top row in red, you can see the 13.7 is a function of the price in the previous year, raised, as can be seen, I highlighted the cells that are affected there, by 5.3%. The chair can see that. So 5.3% feeds into that price, as can be seen. And if we look at the row where 5.3% comes from, it is titled SA PPI. The chair is happy with that. We'll again highlight that. And that carries on in each of the respective years. I think for the chair's comfort, I would look at another 16.6 in this instance, and we can see it references 5.5% from the SAPPI row. So we can see those percentages feed into the locomotive price stated in red. I'll try and demonstrate this for the ZAR foreign component, and that's the row beneath that. So I'm just going to revert. And refer to the row of interest here, which is the row just under that. And that is the part dealing with the foreign component, but in ZAR terms. Remember I mentioned here, this is affected by two quantities. So as can be seen here, the 1.3 is affected by the So it takes the value, as can be seen here. I just want to show you that it's not just the exchange rate, but also US CPI. Use the next one, and apply the exchange rate of 10.04 to it.
It's very so in the transcript. Yes, continue.
But I wouldn't want to lose you at any point.
No fault with you.
Okay.
No fault with you. But some of them, it's too like me, not on a screen. Look on a hard copy, try and follow it properly.
Agreed.
3.1. It's those figures, 9.59, 10.04, 10.52, and you have plotted them on a chart here in the slide, and you compare them against the Bloomberg rates. And I see that if there are differences, sometimes
They're very minor, and
very
they
minor.
relate to differences between between banks in terms of their charges.
And the figures in blue are those figures we get from the model,
Correct, the financial model.
the Transnet forward rates. Overall, if you then make another comparison, which is forward rates versus forecasted rates.
Correct. So, as mentioned earlier, there were two exchange rate tables applied in the business case: the forward curve and forecasted rates. And if the chair recalls, based on our discussions earlier, I actually put that table under maintenance costs to reflect where they were applied. They were applied purely to forecast maintenance costs. Transnet's policy below a certain threshold does not require you to go and hedge exposures. Maintenance costs fell below that threshold, hence a forecast was sufficient for modeling purposes in this sense. And as can be seen, these are the forecasted rates used in the financial model. These forecasted rates are quite different to the forward curve rates, as can be seen. These rates actually, in certain instances, show an appreciation in the rand. We know from our forward curve, we see a depreciation in the rand right through to 2022. There is a difference between the two. Forward curve rates were applied for ETC. Global Insight forecasted rates were applied for maintenance costs, and maintenance costs do not form part of ETC. They form part of TCO, hence the distinction. And that's why we went through the cost items to show you TCO and what TCO is made up of, ETC, and then you have your personnel costs, your maintenance costs, your fuel costs, your emission costs, and so forth. So it's pretty, I think we have demonstrated that they were applied, forecasted rates were applied, but not to ETC. And what was applied in modeling the ETC was the forward curve, which was verified using market data.
And you make this comparison in the slide to demonstrate that the 38.6 billion was arrived at not with reference to forecasted rates, but to actual forward rates. That's the first point. The second is you acknowledge that the business case does make use of forecasted rates.
Correct.
Except those rates are confined strictly to the issue on maintenance.
Correct.
And in the previous slide, you then said, if we accept that I have demonstrated that the rates used is the forward rates obtained from Treasury Department, I have compared those against the rates I obtained from Bloomberg, and they are more or less in line with one another.
Correct.
Would that be a correct summation? Okay. You then go further in that slide and in your statement, give us more detail. Forward.
Concluding slide.
Yes.
Do I have a different slide on?
Then you reach. We now have worked out the makeup of the 38.6 billion. We have calculated the escalation rate, the forex. We have demonstrated that what was taken into consideration is actual forward rates and not forecasted rates. And now we must draw a conclusion from all that exercise. And what is your conclusion?
Okay, so look at the mandate. I think it entailed assessing whether the 38.6 billion was an acceptable estimate for the ETC. Our view is yes, it was an acceptable ETC at the time. Did it include forex hedging rates? It did. Did it allow for forex hedging? It did. Did it allow for forex hedging costs? It did. Did it include escalation? It did, and I think we have demonstrated that by zeroizing some of those costs and observing the impact on the 38.6 billion. So yes, it allowed for all of those, for those two costs in particular, escalation locally and abroad, and forex hedging, and was an acceptable estimate.
And I think we have indicated earlier that any suggestion that the 38.6 billion did not include forex hedging and escalation, you would reject outright.
Correct.
With that conclusion, then, we have disposed of the two issues that you were required to investigate and comment on insofar as 1064 is concerned. And we are now at your page 36 of your statement, where we are dealing with the third aspect, which is the increase in estimated total cost from 38.6 billion to 54.5.
You said that takes us to what page of the statement?
36, Chair, 36.
Page?
36, 36.
36, okay.
Okay.
We've done a lot of numbers today.
Man.
We've done a lot of numbers today. Okay, all right.
There are a few, and unfortunately about to get more.
They
no avoiding.
they have to be done.
They have to be done.
They have to be done. Yeah, let's continue.
We shall soldier on. This.
They didn't say that to go to law, one must first go into actuarial science 101.
No, you can count me out, Chair. I'm not going there.
Yes.
Do you want to say something before we?
That's fine.
Okay. We are now at your page 36, slide 18. Right?
Okay.
And your mandate now, we're now looking, as I said, the increase in ETC from 38.6 billion to 54.5 billion.
To what, sorry?
We are looking at the increase from 38.6 billion to
54.5.
54.5.
Correct.
Earlier you corrected me and said it's 0.9. I said 0.5. And
15.9 is the increase, yeah.
that was what, thanks.
15.9 billion.
And you start this at your slide 18, statement page 36. Starting then at your paragraph 9.47, can you take us through the issues relevant to this particular inquiry and help us work through it and understand how we arrive at an increase of 15.9 billion before you express a view thereon.
Okay. So I think just to reiterate what the mandate was here, identify the reasons put forward for the increase from 38.6 billion to 54.5 billion. That represents a 15.9 billion rand increase in the ETC. Assess the quantums, assess the reasonability of those reasons, assess the reasonability of the amounts next to those reasons, and give an opinion on a reasonable increase over the period. It was essentially a one-year period from April 2013 to March 2014. Should I carry on to the finding?
Sorry. We don't have a finding on this one. We work through the issues before we get to the finding. Because of the nature of the inquiry, you know. So I guess we will go straight into dealing with the issues that are relevant to this determination.
Okay. Should we at this point then refer to the memorandum and look at the first page?
We're happy to. And by memorandum, you're referring to your
The 20
annexure AC5, starting at your statement, page 164, is that so?
Is that the memorandum from the
65.
group CEO?
Marked AC5?
AC5, yeah. It's
Yes.
a memo.
Starts at 165, it's a memo to the Transnet Board. Is that the memo
Yeah,
you're
it's
talking
from
about?
the group
Correct.
CEO.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's to the Transnet Board of Directors from the Group CEO at the time.
I was clarifying, is that the memo you're directing us to?
That is the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the chair has located it as well.
Okay. So, Chair Rash, the reason for this memo, I guess the purpose put forward, and I will just read it on the memo verbatim. So the purpose of this memo is for the board to note the reasons for the increase in ETC and to request that the Board of Directors approve an increase in ETC for the acquisition of 1064 locomotive from GFB of TFR from 38.6 billion to 54.5 billion. So that's the first paragraph. The executive summary in that memo.
Before you go into the executive summary, just so everyone can follow, what we are reading or what we'll be reading under the executive summary is captured in your slide 24. Perhaps you might want to run ahead a bit and bring up slide 24.
Slide 24.
That one.
Oh, correct.
Am I correct? Okay.
You are correct. Okay. Now, however, revert back to the previous slide, which also
Yes.
captures this.
So I say when you deal with the executive summary in the memo, it should be with reference to slide 24,
Slide 24. Okay.
so that everybody can follow what you are saying.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Chair, slide 24 essentially replicates that table in the memo
Yes.
on the slide. Now, I'll take you through the various components. I think to facilitate understanding, let me just go back to this slide and explain to you how this slide links to table 2. Am I jumping the gun? As per my statement.
May I suggest we
Okay.
deal first with the executive summary and then we go to table 2, being a more involved table,
And link it to the.
and then we will try and link it back to this table under the executive summary.
Okay.
So on your screen, then if you could go to slide 24 for this purpose, we shall revert to this one. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So this table is a replica of what we have in the executive summary, and those are the reasons advanced for the increase in ETC. Starting off with the first one, the reason put forward was an update of the business case for updated economic factors. And I think I have captured that verbatim. And that amounted to 5.4 billion. I have 5.39, but essentially it is 5.4 billion, rounded off. And that accounts for 34% of the increase in ETC. So essentially off that 15.9 billion. The second reason put forward, before I explain each of those, is risk mitigation, looking at Forex and escalation, amounting to 9.5 billion. And that makes up 59% of the ETC increase of 15.9 billion. We then have TE scope at an amount of 2.6 billion, making up 16% of the increase in ETC. We have contingencies. Contingencies have gone up in this instance. If you recall, Chair, it was 2.232 billion from the business case. It is now 4.9 billion, or 4.95 to be exact. And that's 31% of that increase. And in addition to that, there was, according to the memo, a saving, and I'll just read verbatim what the source of that saving is. It says lower capital acquisition cost of the locomotive obtained through the competitive tender and negotiation process less the batch pricing adjustment of 2.7 billion. And that saving is noted at 6.5 billion rands, making up negative 41% of that 15.9 billion rand increase.
So, if one tries to understand this table in layman's terms, would I be correct to say the ETC had to increase because one of updated economic factors, taking into consideration forex and escalation, as listed there,
Correct. And
the
that's
TE scope, and the contingency, except what changes is the amount of the contingency, because our original business case had taken into consideration contingency. But that in all this, there has been a saving of 6.5 billion.
correct.
Would I be correct in interpreting it that way?
Correct.
Okay. Do you, in your report, deal specifically with this saving? Are you in a position to assist the chair to locate where this saving comes from?
I cannot pick up the saving when I look at it, when I go through the memo.
You can't pick up a saving.
I can't pick up the saving.
Why not?
I suppose it will become clearer as we go through the relevant cost items, starting off with the locomotive price, but they do not contain.
Okay,
Yes.
then let's do it that way, because we would like to be able to follow and see this saving of 6.5 billion. And while I'm at that, because I would expect, correct me if I'm wrong, that I must apply that saving to the increased ETC. I must have my saving of 6.5 billion. And I would like you to help us work through the memo to show me how that saving is applied to whatever new cost there is.
Okay.
Okay?
So
If you
asked
can.
If I can.
Yes.
To try and identify or locate the 6.5 billion rand saving.
Absolutely. Okay?
I suppose at this point we look at the more detailed table 2.
Okay. And table 2, you mean table 2 of AC5?
Of AC5,
annexure
correct, Chair.
AC5.
Is that, did you say what page on the annexures?
AC5 is we are back in our memo
AC5.
text. AC5.
Okay.
And Mr. Chabi you are referring us to a table?
Table 2 of AC5
Yes.
gives you a build-up from the locomotive price right up to the 54.5 billion.
With your permission, that table 2 is to be found, Chair, at page 169. Now, Chair, what you have at page 169, I think was not meant to be read. We have, Chair?
Did you say it was not meant to be read?
It was not meant to be read.
Read as in color, read as in reading?
Read as in reading. It is, the print is so small.
Oh, yeah.
We have extracted from the reference bundle a copy of that table, presented better. It is the same, exact the same. And we propose to hand it in as 169.1. This will facilitate working through the table.
Yes.
Than relying on the original table in the
Okay.
memo. I've just I've just paginated it 169.1. Okay. Do you have a legible copy
Thank
of
you.
that before you, Mr.?
I have put it overhead,
Okay.
and it's the middle column.
Is it the same thing over there?
No, it's not exactly the same thing. This is your worked on document.
Correct. With the middle column reflecting this table, but it doesn't have the numbers
Okay.
before.
For the moment, the chair should ignore what's on the screen. He should listen to you as you assist him to work through table 2.
Okay.
That's what we want to do. You sent us to table 2, so...
Oh, we've got this on the slides at page 21. What's on the screen?
Yes, Chair.
Chair,
It will be 21, 22, and we will come back to that because that particular slide already includes an opinion, his opinion.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a bit a tad confusing to deal with it at this juncture. We will get to it.
Okay.
So it's best we work our way through table 2. Now, as the chair said, we're working through figures. It's been a day of figures.
We don't have a choice today.
Chair?
We don't have a choice today. We have got to
We
work
don't
through
have a
figures.
choice.
Yeah.
It's 3:30. I need to find out from Mr. Chabi. Mr. Chabi, by 4 o'clock, would we have worked our way through table 2? What's your assessment? Comfortably and in a manner that is understandable? Or will we need more time?
I think we would have in the next half an hour.
We can do it in next half an hour.
Correct.
Okay.
But only as far as linking, going through table 2 and linking that to the table in the executive summary.
Okay. Because I asked this question, Chair, because if we leave table 2 hanging and try and pick it up tomorrow, so
you
if,
talk
when
ab-
we engage with table 2, we take it to all the
you
way.
talk about tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
Yes, Chair.
I was told the witness would be only one day, and tomorrow got given other commitments.
Is there a Friday, Chair?
There is no Friday either.
Then we have, the only choice we have, Chair, I wasn't aware of that because we actually had more witnesses lined up for you tomorrow.
Well, I don't know what happened, but even with Mr. Chabi, I had to ask whether he would need the whole day. Then I was told that definitely would need the whole day. But in terms of the program for this week, tomorrow and Friday,
Supposed to be open.
I was told there would be no witness, and Monday. The next hearing is Tuesday, the 3rd, Wednesday, the 4th, and I'm not sure whether the 5th, on the 5th there is already a witness or something is still being worked out.
4, 5, 6. There were witnesses subject to your confirmation.
Yeah, I can't remember about 5. I know 3 and 4 are confirmed, and I know who the witnesses are.
Yes.
I think I may have said something must be done to explore the possibility of getting a certain witness on the 5th, but I can't remember where that process is, whether it's finalized or not. And I said to Mr. Pretorius, because Monday and Tuesday this week, Monday and yesterday, he was supposed to lead 3 witnesses.
Yes.
He only managed to lead 2. I said to him, the 3rd one he could look at, I don't know whether I said the 5th or the 6th. I may have said the 6th, because I said we need to finish with him. So I was never made to understand that we need another day for Mr. Chabi, and
May I propose something, Chair?
yeah,
That perhaps we consider going to 6:30, 7 today to finish Mr. Chabi. He's still on 1064. We haven't touched 100.
we can't go beyond 5 today either. You know, there are
Yes.
days when we can go even beyond 5 and 6 and so on, but it happens to be a day when I've got other commitments.
May we then-
I think let's talk about by 4 o'clock, how much time do you think will be necessary for the completion of his evidence? Or let's say from now, how many hours would we still need?
I'm conferring here, I'm seeking counsel.
Yes.
to make a- I'm advised maximum 2 hours, including 100 transaction.
Maximum.
That's the advice I get, Chair.
Is it minimum or maximum?
I do-
Is 2, I just want to make sure nobody made a mistake.
Mr. Chabi shakes his head, and Mr. Chabi shakes his head, and I shall be led by him.
Yes.
And this is, I guess my concern is, this is the one aspect, based on the mandate he was given. The chair will recall that as far as 2 are concerned, he said he did not have a difficulty. This is the one aspect that he has serious difficulties with.
Yeah.
And this is, it's quite important to understand the basis for that conclusion, and we would need to work through it. So I too am very concerned that we can work through it in 2 hours.
You say you are comfortable with
No.
2 hours. You are
No,
not comfortable
I
with 2
join
hours.
Mr. Chabi.
Oh, what-
It took me more than 2 hours to even get a sense of what he's talking
Yes.
about, let alone understand.
So what is a reasonable estimate of how many hours we need to, or let me say from where we are now, let's forget about 4 o'clock, in terms of
I'll
what
say
is
4
left.
hours. 4 hours, half a day,
4 hours.
yes.
Well, certainly,
I was going to make a proposal. I know the lineup for Tuesday. Originally, when Tuesday was set up, it was supposed to be, those 2 witnesses were supposed to be for half a day.
well, you see, on, Tuesday is a witness who could take half a day, but I'm not sure. I had thought even the witness with whom he is supposed to have come previously,
Yes.
I would have thought half a day was good enough for him, but he ended up with more than a day. He had to come back the following day. So it makes it difficult to estimate.
May we then
But
take
what-
the 5th because, may we then take the 5th because, Wednesday the 5th, because the chair, is it the 5th? Or the 4th, Wednesday the 4th? Because the chair is expecting for a witness to be presented on the 4th, and no firm plans have been made in that regard, and no firm plans have been made about that witness or witnesses for the 4th.
No,
And-
on the 4th, the 2 witnesses are coming.
No, they come on the 3rd. They come on the Tuesday.
No, maybe we're talking about different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are 2 for
there's-
Tuesday, there are 2 for Wednesday.
No, there are 2 for
Tuesday.
2 for Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah, 2 for
And I'm saying-
Tuesday, and the one for the 4th. Summons was issued, and no arrangements or application has been brought. So, as far as we know, he should be here, unless you know something
No,
that
no.
has not reached me.
No, Chair, I don't.
So I think, but I think we're talking about the same witness when we said maybe he would take half an hour.
No, in fact,
Was it the
I
same
was
witness?
talking about the witnesses for Tuesday.
Oh,
Those
okay.
are the witnesses I thought might be short.
No, I was talking about the one for Wednesday.
And Thursday the 5th? Thursday the 5th?
Yeah, that's the one that I say I'm not sure about. But you see, also, a matter that I will be working on, which will take most of my time, Thursday and Friday, and weekend and Monday. If it doesn't get finished, I might need every time possible. So, you know, when you use part of the day for a hearing, it's very difficult to do certain things that need focus and attention later. It's much better if you have got you set aside a day. But I think that we might not be able to fix the date now, but we should be able to find 3 or 4 hours before the end of next week.
Yes, Chair.
If, for example, the matter that I'm talking about, I've been able to give it attention and finalized by Monday, then we could find Friday. I think Friday is the 6th.
Friday the 6th?
We could find that. We could use that, but because this other matter needs priority, I wouldn't like to risk. So if it's not going to be too inconvenient to everybody, I would say let's continue now and maybe go up to 5 if that's convenient for everybody. And then Monday at some stage, latest Tuesday, I can indicate what the possibilities are on either Tuesday, no, not Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
Mr. Chubby, I know this is not something that is certain, but you hear what I say. How would that work for you? Would you be able with that uncertainty until either Monday afternoon or Tuesday?
I'll work according to your schedule.
You
Chair.
can, yeah. Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
And it's now 20 to 4. You are able to go till 5 o'clock. Mr. Chavi, are you comfortable still?
Are you able for us to work up to 5?
With a cup of tea at some point, yes.
Okay. Well, we'll take it at 4 o'clock. Is that all right?
Okay.
Okay. It's nearly 1:45 on my watch, so we can.
Do we take it at 4, Chair, or before he gets into table 2? Because we are getting into table 2 now.
Oh, is that so?
Yes.
Okay, maybe let's take it now.
So that when we get into table 2,
Then we
try and get it all the way to the conclusion.
Yes, okay, let's take it and we resume at 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we are Chair. If we do an hour now up to 5, are we going to be left with 3 hours?
Chair, before I answer that, may I say something? Because during the break, we
Yeah,
were
something was
conferring.
discussed. Okay.
Yes. And we were looking at whether we are capable of realistically dealing with this aspect in 1 hour. Would we be doing justice to it? We have a choice of dealing with it at a very high level, and that will not be doing justice to the topic. The sense is that we will not finish it in 1 hour. When we reconvene, the time between when we stop and reconvene will require us to rehash what we do today in order for the remainder to make sense. And that's what we're trying to work through, and we are in your hands at this point.
Well, maybe let me tell you what I was thinking.
Yes, Chair.
Then you can see how it fits into the discussion during the break that you people had. I was thinking we could take an hour now, do justice to Mr. Chabi's evidence, then adjourn. Then on Tuesday, explore the possibility of starting early with him on Tuesday, say 9 o'clock. So 9 to 10 is another hour. Maybe if we add another hour before we start with Tuesday's first witness, we go up to 11. That's 2 hours. So that gives us 3 hours, including the hour that we'll do now. And I was wondering whether, you said 4 hours, but I don't know whether we could finish within 3 hours without doing any injustice to his evidence. I don't know what you think.
I think 3 hours would be a fair amount of time. If the chair will recall, we are still dealing with 1064. We then need to go to 100. But as Mr. Chabi indicated, his mandate on 100 was a narrower mandate. It was not as involved as with 1064. So insofar as 100 is concerned, we need very little time. We could just highlight the key issues. The bulk of the principles that emanate from this 1064 are applicable to 100, so we could just by extension deal with 100 in that manner. So if we were to perhaps take an hour today and try and find another 2 hours to complete next week, it might help. The concern we had was the break between when we finish today and when we reconvene, that it shouldn't be too long. Otherwise, we have to rehash this hour for that evidence to make sense. But if there's a possibility we may come back on Tuesday, then it is doable, Chair. Then it is doable.
Is the short answer that because of the time that may be necessary to refresh everyone's memory, the 3 hours would not be enough? 1 hour today and 2 hours on Tuesday morning?
The view was the remaining portion of his evidence insofar as 1064 is concerned is best dealt with in one fell swoop in order for it to make sense.
Oh, okay.
If it is broken, the longer the break between when he appears,
Yeah.
the more likely they need to rehash again, restart.
Okay.
Next time we reconvene.
So is the position therefore that 3 hours would be fine, but it should rather be a stretch,
Preferably.
and not 1 hour today and 2 hours
Preferably,
on Tuesday?
Yes, because it's a singular topic now.
Oh.
It's a single topic that we are dealing with.
Okay.
Yes.
And then that would be enough to complete his evidence?
It would.
Yeah.
We could find in the interim means and ways of perhaps presenting the evidence on transaction 100
Yeah.
in a quicker manner.
Yes.
But like I say, all the principles would have been established through 1064.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. The witness for, or there are two witnesses on Tuesday, yeah?
On Tuesday, yes, Chair. Our best bet would have been on Wednesday, subject to whether or not the witness the chair referred to, who's been served with summons,
Yeah,
is able to appear.
yes.
And I don't know when we get the answer for that.
You know, I think Wednesday for that witness, I think it may be better that we start, we adjourn the hearing of Mr. Chavi's evidence to Wednesday.
Yes, Chair.
We start at 9. Because if we start at 9 and we need 3 hours, that takes us to 12, is that right?
To 12.
To 12.
Or maybe
that
sooner,
would-
if we find a better way, perhaps, of...
Eh?
Or maybe before 12, maybe sooner than 12, if
Oh,
we
yeah,
find a better way
maybe
of
sooner.
working through it.
Maybe sooner. But again, Tuesday's witnesses could be quite short, even though there are 2.
We'd anticipated that, but we may be wrong, that both of them would be half-a-day witnesses.
Yeah.
But we could be wrong.
Maybe we should rather adjourn to Wednesday, and we do the best we can to finish before the expiry of 3 hours if possible. But if not, at least we don't go beyond 3 hours.
Beyond 12, yes, Chair.
Yeah, I think maybe we do that. Is Wednesday suitable? Would you be available on Wednesday?
Certainly, Chair.
You would be available.
Doubt it.
So maybe that's what we should do. And
We'll aim for 11:30.
yeah, to try and
Then
finish
perhaps
11:30.
the chair can have a 15-minute break before then he deals with the other 2 witnesses. Yes, Chair.
Okay, no, I think let's do that. So let's adjourn then for today to Wednesday. It's the 4th, I think it is.
The 4th of December,
Wednesday,
yeah.
the 4th of December, commencing at 9 o'clock, and then we will see how it goes. Okay.
Are we happy with that arrangement, Chair?
Okay, okay, Mr. Chabi, we will adjourn the hearing of your evidence to Wednesday at 9 o'clock. And so we will continue on Wednesday morning.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, we adjourn.
Thank you, Chair.
All rise.